My name's Rachel Baker. I'm a reader in health economics at the Yunus Centre for Social Business and Health at Glasgow Caledonian University. And I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes or so telling you about something called Q methodology. It's going to be really difficult to do justice to a complex methodology or any methodology in 5 minutes. And so it's with apologies to William Stevenson, who was the originator of Q methodology back in the 1930s, that I'm going to make this just a taster of Q. And I'm going to do that by focusing on two of the main distinguishing features of Q methodology, which are the way in which we collect data and the way in which we analyse those data. So what is Q methodology? It's really a set of connected techniques that we use in order to study what Q methodologists call subjectivity. And by subjectivity they mean, or we as Q methodologists mean, values, beliefs, subjective opinion, perspectives, what people think and feel about an issue in question. So the two key aspects of Q methodology are the data collection technique, which is known as the Q sort, which is the arranging of a set of cards, and a form of factor analysis known as an inverted factor analysis, termed that by William Stevenson in his letter to Nature in 1935. And it has been used in a bunch of different areas. I've looked at views of the general public around the distribution of NHS resources, how we can distribute resources fairly to different people, but it's been used in political science, psychology, education, communications research, in a wide range of applications. So we need to start with that set of cards, the Q set as it's known. The Q set is drawn from what's known as the concourse, and the concourse is simply the kind of universe of statements that could be said around any topic of interest. And from that complete set, we draw a representative sample of statements to use in the Q sort. And Q methodologists do that in a bunch of different ways. We might interview people that we think have views on the issue. We might turn to the printed media or look at policy documents, public consultations or internet discussions. Anything which is going to give us conversational sources of opinion. If you want to try a Q sort for yourself, we have an online Q sort that you can reach by clicking on the link on the slide. But often the Q sorts are done face-to-face. The first thing we ask people to do is to arrange the cards into 3 piles, usually agree, disagree and neutral or don't care. And from those 3 piles, then we're going to ask people to place them in a sort of more ornate pattern, if you like, onto a grid that looks like this. The grid's arranged in a sort of quasi-normal shape. It's a bell shape where the cards that are placed at the outsides of that grid are those statements that people feel strongly about, either disagree with them strongly or agree with them strongly. Towards the centre of the grid are statements that people don't care much about, statements that they feel more ambivalent about. And so the researcher would guide a respondent through the placing of the cards until every card was placed on the grid, and then record the placing of the cards according to a statement number. And that's the primary source of data in a Q study. Usually it's followed by a short interview or a discussion where the respondent explains the placing of the cards, and that qualitative data helps us later to interpret the factors that come out of the analysis. So how do we select respondents to do those Q sorts? Well, sampling in Q methodology is very like qualitative sampling. In other words, we're looking for respondents who are data rich, people who have things that they can say about the subject, people who feel strongly and feel differently about the subject. So we're looking for variation in the sample too. It's difficult to say how many people you'll need at the start, because what we need is sufficient respondents to identify the perspectives that exist on any topic. And we need sufficient respondents that once we've identified those perspectives, they're stable. In other words, additional respondents are going to change the findings very little. And that's the point that we stop. Usually 40 to 60 respondents is going to be plenty to allow us to do that. So to analysis, we have a sample of respondents, we have all of their Q sorts, and now we're going to embark on a factor analysis of those Q sorts. And you may be familiar with factor analysis in different kinds of research. It's a data reduction method. It allows us to take a data set with a large number of items in it and find, through correlations, underlying dimensions that help us to describe the data set and account for the variance in it. And in Q methodology, what we're looking for are similarities between respondents through their Q sorts. We're looking for the patterns in the ways in which respondents have arranged those cards. And the aim is to identify and describe those subjectivities, those perspectives that cluster people together who think similarly. It all starts with a correlation matrix. We take everyone's Q sort and we find the correlation between that and everybody else's Q sort. And from there, factor analysis allows us to identify these clusterings of opinion, these shared meanings. So on this slide, you can see that there are clusters of opinion represented by similarly coloured Q sorts. And we identify that they're correlated, pull them together and draw out a factor. And here shown factors A, B and C. We can represent those factors using the same set of cards that our respondents have sorted in the first place. So we can arrange the cards and form a sort of a composite Q sort that represents the ways in which those people associated with that factor, the ways in which they were similar, what held them together, what would their shared Q sort look like. And then we can interpret that composite Q sort, and it allows us to describe often quite rich descriptions of subjectivities that exist around the topic. This part of the analysis is particularly rewarding for researchers when we discover something new, something unexpected in the way that people look at things. There's so much more that could be said about Q methodology that I don't have time to say, but I'm going to sum it up in terms of what goes in. That's a bunch of Q sorts from a carefully selected set of respondents. What we do with that information, which is look for patterns and similarities between people, and what comes out of our factor analysis, which are rich descriptions of the ways in which people think and feel about a topic in question, their subjectivities. I'll leave you with some introductory references if you're interested in reading more, and with an invitation to contact me if you want to find out more. Thank you.